Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back. You know, one of the hardest parts of parenting a disabled child is realizing that sometimes the first thing we have to grieve is not the child, it's the version of parenthood that we imagine. The milestones, the conversations, the future we pictured before diagnosis, before therapy schedules, communication challenges, and systems that often tell us who our children are before we get to really know them. And for many fathers, that grief can be complicated. We're taught to hold it together, to fix the problem, stay strong, keep moving. But what happens when the thing that needs to change is not our child? What happens when the real transformation begins, when we stop trying to fix them and truly start seeing them? Today's guest, Brandon Boyd, is the father of Ben, a 21-year-old non-speaking young man who uses signs and iPad and recently began spelling words to communicate. Brandon is also the author of Delighting in Ben, a book about fatherhood, disability, faith, grief, connection, and learning to love the child in front of you. That idea resonates deeply with me because my own journey with Stone has changed almost everything I thought I understood about intelligence, communication, parenting, and presuming competence. So today we're going to talk father to father about Ben, about Stone, grief, communication, faith, and what it means to delight in our children exactly as they are, while still fighting for every opportunity that they deserve. So, welcome back to the lighter side of the spectrum, where we explore the joy, complexity, heartbreak, humor, and humanity of life with autism, disability, communication differences, and the families who are learning, often the hard way, to see our children more clearly. As I said, my guest today is Brandon Boyd. His son, Ben, is 21, non-speaking, has a rare genetic disorder. Like many of us, Brandon started his journey trying to understand, support, and in his words, fix the parts of his child's life that he felt were hard or different. But over time, this journey has shifted. He began to understand that connection does not require speech, that love is not waiting for some future version of our child to arrive, and that our kids are already worthy, already whole, and already communicating in more ways than we may know how to recognize at first. With all that being said, Brandon, welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum.
David, I'm honored to be here with you.
Oh, well, it's great having you here. Thank you for reaching out. As we had said, father to father, I think it's going to be a great conversation. It's an interesting journey, I think, for all parents. But like we're saying, that we have different roles or different societal expectations. There's just something different about being in the autism or the disability dad club, as we call it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Ben. Early on, take us to those early days. When did you kind of realize that his path may look a little different from what you expected?
Sure. So I grew up in Oklahoma City and was really blessed to kind of have a charmed childhood with two loving parents, a sister, and spent a lot of time at the country club, in the pool and playing tennis, and was always outside playing sports with my neighborhood buddies. So I was really grateful for that. And later, God called me into ministry, met my wife in our ministry.
Oh, okay.
And we got married in 2001. And then to fast forward a little bit, we had our boys, had Ben first, who now just turned 22. So Ben is 22 years old, and, we didn't know at the time because he was our first, just that there were some milestones he was missing that we should have maybe, should be aware of and maybe have some concerns about. And thankfully, our pediatrician noticed these things at 9 months old that Ben, he was not rolling over, not sitting up, some things that she noted that caused some concern. And it was time to
Hmm.
go see some specialists and kind of explore more what might be going on. And so that was really hard to hear. It was like she was speaking in slow motion when she
Yeah.
was, sharing these things about, I think it's time we go see some specialists. And so we began that path, at 9 months old. And the hard part, David, the really hard part for me at this point, I still didn't know. I was beginning to grieve a dream I didn't know I had as a dad.
Right.
And it really didn't hit me until Ben was 1 year old. We were up in Denver, Colorado to see some specialists, went to Denver Hospital. And it was kind of a collaborative effort. Several doctors spent time with Ben, and we got to look through some looking glass in this room while different specialists went to spend time with him, interact with him.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of a stale, kind of hollow, dark atmosphere. And probably because I didn't like the setup, it felt like a lab rat, the
Hmm.
way he
Yeah,
was
I can
being
see
treated.
that. Yeah.
So that was really hard for me. And then it got harder after they had collaborated, after spending time with Ben. The doctors talked, and then one kind of delivered the news. Their kind of, I guess, opinions at this point about Ben's potential diagnosis and future. And they just were real. She just was real kind of matter of fact and no bedside manner, and just was pretty negative, that just didn't give us much reason to hope that there would be much meaningful change, that there was going to be
Mm.
significant challenges in Ben's life. And we didn't know what those
At age one, like this
at
is what
age
you're
one.
hearing. Yeah. Right.
So at least that's what I heard. I mean, I heard, and I left that hospital just devastated. And I think I cried most of the day.
Hmm.
I cried
Sure.
most of the day. And that was kind of a big moment that I talk about in the book, the Denver experience, because it just wasn't a good experience. Not the fact that even just they shared with us that, hey, he's going to have some significant challenges. It was the manner in which they told us, and it was the manner in which they treated Ben that was
Hmm.
really, really hard for me. And so I think at that moment, though I still didn't know what I was grieving, I really began to grieve the reality that, okay, what I was expecting as a father, what you kind of dream out of your own story. And I was imagining taking Ben to football games,
Of course.
watching
Yeah.
sports on television,
Oh yeah.
playing golf
Playing
one day.
catch. Yeah. Taking. Yeah. Right. The whole shebang. Right.
Yeah, going to movies, even just basic things like that.
Yeah.
And I realized that, okay, this doesn't seem like that's going to be in the cards for us. And I
And
think I really begin to grieve that.
what can you tell us? What was the diagnosis at that stage?
At that point, that he hadn't even been diagnosed technically with autism, he would be at age 2. But I
Okay.
think it was just the negativity, the thoughts of those doctors that day in Denver, that there would not be much meaningful progress based on what they could tell at that age, even. So that's
And
what was so
so there was
devastating for me.
basic. So was it based, Brandon, on like behavior? Again, was it mostly just observation? So it wasn't necessarily
Just
like it wasn't genetic testing. It wasn't
not yet.
not
Yeah.
yet. Right. Okay.
They just were observing him, spent, I don't
Observing
know how
him.
long we were there, an hour, and they took turns going in there to interact with them. Several different, speech therapists, occupational therapists, I'm imagining all
Yeah.
these different people. And just they collaborated and decided they just weren't there just wasn't any positivity, not much hope. I'm sure there were a few kind things they shared, but I don't remember them because of all the hard
Right.
things they
Yeah. That's
shared.
just remarkable.
So it
Again,
was,
thinking at age one to get that kind of message,
yes. And
and for
so,
them to say that with such certainty, I think that's a common thread that I've heard from other parents and that we share to a
yeah,
certain degree, right? Like
yeah.
that kind of diagnosis at an early age, at that back then was kind of like a lifetime sentence in a way. It felt like,
And this was 2005. So I guess that makes sense, as I've heard you, talk with other
yeah,
guests on your podcast. And so, yeah, that was kind of, they didn't know what to say. They didn't even have like, hey, but here's some hopeful things. I think if you,
right,
try this
right.
and that, and who knows where, so and so can be, Ben can be in 5-10 years. And so I just left there really devastated. And then he wasn't officially diagnosed till 2006 when he was 2 with autism.
Okay. Okay. And then by that time, though, it sounds like you've probably come to terms, probably to a certain degree. But,
Yeah,
one of the things you had mentioned that again resonated with me was wanting to fix him, right? Again,
yeah.
being a dad, being a guy, like, hey, here's a problem. I'm going to fix the problem.
Yes, and I know that's common for us men. We're fixers, and we want to kind of smooth the path for our families and kind of get ahead of things, and not only to provide, to protect, and just take good care of our families. And so I thought at that time, David, that if Ben couldn't speak, if communication never came as far as verbally,
Yeah,
then there would be no connection. I didn't envision a way to connect with my son. So
sure.
I was hyper focused on fixing, hyper focused, so focused on fixing. I would say this first from age 1 till about age 5 or 6, I just wasn't enjoying Ben very much. I wasn't really present with him, really engaging deeply with him, because I was always thinking about the next therapy appointment, which is so easy for parents to do in the early years because you've got 3 or 4, several therapy appointments each week. So you can't escape it. It's always on your
Oh,
mind, and you're kind of you're paying attention to any bit of progress, any progress.
right.
So I was focused on the problem. I was focused on any progress Ben was making with communication at all. And so I was missing the person. I was really
I think that's
missing.
that's a really good point. I mean, I think, but that's so easy to do. I was gonna say, I hope you cut yourself a little slack, give yourself some grace there, Brandon,
Yes.
because
Yes.
also I want to say that you're hyper focused on it, as was I, as were again so many other parents. Happy. But that's also it's based on the feedback that we're getting as well. And so you're talking about these multiple appointments,
Yeah.
right? There's a structure. We go, we drop them off. They go in
Yeah.
the back, right? We're sitting in
Yeah.
the waiting room, and they come out with their little checklist of here's the progress that he made in XYZ, right? And so
Yeah.
that was kind of okay. So go for it. That was kind of the language that we lived in. So I think, for you, like I said, to be so hyper focused, we had no choice in a lot of ways.
I would agree. And they would always give you 10 or 15 things you could be doing. And so
Yeah,
Jennifer and I were
you're
always like, my
right.
wife and I were like, let's pick one thing right now. Let's pick 1 or 2 things. Otherwise, it was just overwhelming. You not only were you grieving just maybe the potential story now that you didn't expect would be a part of your life, your family's life. And now down the road, as I get to this here in a second, there's been lots of positive.
Sure.
There's been a lot of great things with our story that God's been writing. But in that moment when Ben was young, boy, I just was grieving just the experience I wouldn't have with him that I envisioned as a dad, a father and son relationship. And what's funny is instead of us throwing footballs in the backyard, we now bounce racquetballs, and everything just looks different, but we still bond and connect. And so I'll share more of that down the road here. But yeah, you couldn't really stay present or be in the moment with my son or even with my wife a lot of times because we're thinking about the next thing and the next doctor's appointment and what do we need to be doing right now, and always kind of
Yeah.
think of your to-do list and just focus on that.
Well, it's a tough age for any parent. Right? I mean, like
Yep.
that's just an act when you're talking about young boys, up to age. I mean, these are active guys. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into parenting them.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. So I think that. So let's talk about then what helped you begin to shift, from trying to fix Ben
Yeah.
to truly seeing him and enjoying him.
Yeah, it was really just a profound moment, a pivotal moment in my life when Ben was about 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly the age, but he was 5 or 6. We were going to Tulsa, which was about an hour drive from Stillwater, to go to therapy on Wednesdays. And so we're up there and we went by a McDonald's, which we had been frequenting McDonald's for a couple of years at that point. It was close to the therapist office, and we stopped there for lunch. And we had a pack sandwiches for Ben. He always just eats peanut butter and jelly. That's his diet.
Oh, okay.
He eats that probably 95% of the time, David. So it's pretty funny.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what that brother eats. And he likes frozen pancakes heated up and a pizza on occasion. But we were at that McDonald's, which was common. He was used to it. So he was used to the smells and sounds of the McDonald's and knew where he wanted to sit, knew the table he wanted to sit at. And so he would lead the way, lead us to that table. We would sit down. I would order, and I would kind of keep an eye on Ben. And then I joined him at the table this particular day. And I'm kind of scanning the restaurant for potential just oh, if is Ben being too loud, or other people kind of paying too much attention to us? Are we
Yeah.
a big distraction? And so that was my normal loop, kind of processing that and worried about how others were experiencing us and what others thought about us. And that day, that wasn't happening. That day, by God's grace, I was just sitting across the table from Ben, and not a word was spoken. He was doing nothing for me. I was doing nothing for him. I was just enjoying being across the table, enjoying being in his presence. And I was delighting in him, taking pleasure in him. And that's when God brought to mind this. He brought to mind, Brandon, this is what I want with you, that I delight in you and I never leave the table. I'm always inviting you to be with me, to enjoy relationship with me. And obviously I'm a person of faith, a believer in Christ, a follower of Christ, and he's changed my life. And that was a special moment where I really began to understand more, at least in my faith journey, that was something that I was missing. I didn't understand that God liked me. I understood that God loved me before, but not that he liked me and just delighted in being with me.
Interesting.
So from that moment, David, it really changed how I began to experience Ben. And I was more present by God's grace, was more present. And doesn't mean I still wasn't thinking about therapy appointments and thinking about how are we going to help Ben take the next step to continue to grow and mature and reach his ceiling, whatever that's going to be for his development, relationally, intellectually, socially, whatever. And so that was what I was thinking. But I was also trying to, as I thought about the future, try to stay present in the moment and not let the future steal the moment with Ben. So that was a big,
yeah. No. So talk about, I love the phrase you used, delighting in Ben, and talk about then how did that manifest into the future, and did it translate into how you integrated him into schools, or how because you talked about something I thought was a really good point, like you said, that hypervigilance at McDonald's, where you're on a high alert. Are we bothering people? Right? There's a kind of, and then at a certain point you just kind of lose that, and like you said, you accept, and you're just like, hey, this is my kid.
Okay.
Deal with it. It's okay, right? People are fine. No one's getting hurt. But can you talk about then how did that manifest for you?
Yeah, I kind of loosened up on that, right? We have to loosen up and just know we're going to make a little noise, and we might be a lot to handle, but we're going to go out to eat some and just to enjoy each other. And that's part of it. But I think that the whole delighting in Ben, how that has continued to this day, I think what started to happen after that McDonald's moment was just being more curious about Ben, really trying to pay attention to the things that get him excited, the things he enjoys, the things that make him come alive. And it wasn't hard to figure out. Ben's pretty, demonstrative, pretty expressive. Though he, at that time was only communicating with like 20 or 30 signs, and even signs that he kind of just created his own, that we understood what he was communicating. He probably had 20 or 30 signs.
Good. That's interesting.
But would if he wanted something to eat, he would give you the bread. He would just grab stuff out of the fridge. So it wasn't hard to figure out what he wanted, oftentimes, for me and my wife. But I began to pay more attention. And one thing I noticed was Ben loves the garage door.
Oh, yes. I wanted to talk about the garage door. Yeah.
So, I mean, who would have thought that instead of, taking Ben to football games, we spend most of our time, playing with the garage door 3 times a day. And we have to limit
opening and closing the garage door.
That's right. And I've learned, David, that there's a limit with the motor of the garage door. So you're going to burn the motor out if you if you do it more than. That's right. We've gone through many springs on the garage door.
Have you really? I say that because literally last week ours broke. Yeah.
Oh no, we have replaced multiple parts of the garage door. We were on speed dial for a while.
That's amazing.
Now, the good news is they've gotten better with technology. The new motor, I hate to even speak of it, has lasted about a year. So we haven't had to call them in a while. But we probably raise and lower that thing about 15 to 20 times a day. And we'll go out there, 3 different times. And Ben knows the limits. I'll kind of have to tell him, but he just loves it. And so by God's grace, I've chosen to love the things he loves. And he loves the garage door. He loves Mardi Gras beads. He wraps Mardi Gras beads.
Oh, awesome.
And he likes to color coordinate them. And I think it comforts him. It's a
Yeah.
sensory thing. It comforts him. He enjoys it. And he has a swing upstairs. He loves his swing. I think that's soothing to him because,
Yeah.
kids with autism, as you know, just regulation and the body space thing is complicated. And Ben has apraxia with the whole mind and mouth not
Oh,
communicating, not
okay. Yeah.
connecting. So
Yeah.
I think it really helps his body kind of settle, the swinging part. And then he's got his iPads that he enjoys, listen to music and kind of loops the same movie clip over and over. We've been hearing
Sure.
the same movie clips for 20 years. I
What
think,
movie? What movie?
oh, Cars. And
Cars.
thankfully I
Okay.
like
Yeah.
Cars.
Yeah.
So, but
That
I've heard it.
helps.
I don't know how many times I've heard it. I mean, tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but he likes looping the same scene, a funny expression on in the movie, a funny clip that he just thinks is funny. He'll laugh at it and just enjoy it, for hours. And so, but we have to be careful there not to let him just, sit there and consume Mardi Gras beads or his iPad, but we try to continue to help Ben just, challenge him in fresh ways and not do things that he can do for himself. But I've learned, God has just helped me to learn to really notice the things he likes, to be observant, to try to see life through his eyes and choose to love those things. And that's kind of created what I didn't know at the time, back when I was grieving Ben's inability to speak, that we have found all kinds of ways to connect deeply through just, Ben loves for me to get in his face and make silly faces. He
Oh,
loves a
that's
big
fun.
body
Oh, that's
hug.
cute.
He
Yeah.
loves when we pile on him in the bed when he goes to bed at night. He's got a weighted blanket, then mom and dad will pounce on him sometimes, and the dog. And
Oh, the
he'll
dog.
laugh, you know? And so we just
So
have found
he's
it.
definitely a sensory seeker
He
for
is.
sure.
Yes. So that we just have found ways to connect by God's grace. And he loves the water too, David. He loves to get in our pool. And that's a whole nother story in the book where God just, brought to mind several times one summer. He loves water. We used to have just a Walmart blow up pool and just a $20 pool, and that was sufficient for him. But we realized how much he enjoys water and how when we're in the water, that's when he's most connected and engaging with us, with
Yes.
my wife and I and my
Oh,
younger
yeah.
son, who is, neurotypical. And so we felt like that'd be a great way for us all to bond. And so we asked a pool company to consider putting one in for him and discounting it. And I got laughed at by the first couple I called. And then the third one said, "Hey, let's talk about this. We've done a few of these like this
Oh,
before
wow.
for families with a child with autism." And so they customized a pool for Ben that's in ground in our backyard right now. And we've been able to
How
enjoy
is
it for
it
about 6 years.
customized? I'm really curious about that. I mean,
They well, Ben can't swim, and so the deepest part is 4 feet 9 inches of the pool.
it's
That's the
awesome.
deepest
Okay.
part.
Yeah, that's great.
And they added a bubbler on this tanning ledge, and so he loves when things just bubble
Oh,
up and
fun. Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
they
fountain
love
type
that.
thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. That
So
is super cool. That's really cool to be, and because that is obviously, I don't know about you, Brandon. I mean, that was like the thing I freaked out about the most. Because Stone also he always loved the water. We live close to the beach actually here in
yeah,
the Seattle area. Wasn't so worried about him potentially drowning there. I mean, he's always, but you always hear the
yeah,
stories, right? That's the number one, unfortunately, the number one cause of death with young autistic kids is drowning. They love water. It's just, I think it's just like it helps them connect to their bodies,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they describe it way better than I can. But
yeah,
I just remember just being on high alert. Stone did learn to swim eventually. He got to the point where that was a big milestone of where I felt like,
yeah.
if he's in the water, he could swim to the side or whatever. But to be able to have a pool where you don't even have to worry about that, that's awesome.
It's been such a blessing. And it's kind of created some bonds for he and his younger brother. So we have a little basketball hoop on the side of it. And so Ethan and I will play tackle hoops, and Ben, we'll use Ben as a moving screen. He loves when dad and brother kind of banging around, and he'll get out there with us and we'll use him to kind of shield the other from him, from the ball and shoot over him. So we'll use Ben as a moving screen. But yeah, it's created some bonds for he and his brother. And Ben will kind of spread his legs in the water for Ethan to go under his legs and for me to go under his legs. And so it's just created some bonds and interactions that, I like I said, I really had a limited understanding back when Ben was young that I thought life was kind of over, as far as
Mm,
just thought that there was little hope for me to have a special connection with Ben. But boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I
yeah,
wrong, thankfully.
yeah. Thankfully, talk, Brandon. I'm interested. You mentioned Ethan.
Yeah.
neurotypical, a younger brother in this
Hmm.
case.
Hmm.
Talk about what it's like for you as a dad. Then how have you tried to spend time with him? Because that's another challenge, right? Is if you have
Yes.
a neurotypical child or children or whatever, but there's one who has elevated needs, appointments, things like that.
Yeah.
How have you tried to manage that with Ethan?
Yeah. David, I didn't do it well when they were young.
It's
And
hard.
it makes me
It's
sad
really
even thinking
hard.
about it. I didn't do it well. As you know, you're trying to figure things out. You have no energy because Ben wasn't sleeping well for 11 years. So I
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
sleeping well. And so I had lack of energy. I was emotionally drained. And so I had just very little just ability at that time to engage even my wife. And so, or
Sure.
even engage at work very well. And so yeah, I think that McDonald's moment was really pivotal to pay more attention to Ben and pay more attention to Ethan. He was about three at that point, two or
Okay.
three.
Yeah.
And I was paying some attention to him, but I just mean like really locked in more. And and just kind of the things that God had taught me with Ben to pay attention to things he likes doing, expose him to a variety of things, different youth sports and things at school, band, whatever, and just see what he likes and
Hmm.
kind of let him kind of filter those things down. And then those things that he loves doing, just jump in there with him. And thankfully, he and I have a lot of overlap. He and I both enjoy watching football together and going to games and Thunder basketball. And so we do have a lot of overlap. And there's some things we don't. I mean, he's different too. He and I are not the exact same people. And so he and his brother are very different, but I just have had the Lord's help me to kind of discover, to pay
Hmm.
attention, to discover, try to see life through their eyes, and then to really pay attention that the time is not going to be perfectly balanced, but to try to pay attention to, okay, I spend a lot of time with Ben this Friday or Saturday. I need to spend a little more time, be more intentional with Ethan. If we're not, because a lot of times they're not doing the same things. They don't have the same interest.
I'm
And
curious,
so
did you and your wife also did you kind of deploy the divide and conquer
we did
strategy,
that. Yeah,
right? Because I
we
think
did
that's
that.
common.
So we did that with sports because Ethan played a lot of sports, from age 5 or 6 till he was probably a sophomore, junior in high
Mhm.
school. So we did. I would go to games and Jennifer sometimes would go to games if we couldn't find a caregiver to stay with Ben because Ben did not have it was not going to work for him to go to ball games.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
so that did not work for him. And so we had to have always somebody with him at home. And so that was
Yeah.
tough. That was tough because you grieve, one of us wasn't there for a special moment, for Ethan. So that was hard. That was really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Again, that's one of those things that I think most people, again, unless they're in our shoes, just can't understand, right? Like it's another level of challenge that
Yeah.
has to be navigated logistically and emotionally, as you had mentioned.
Yeah. And David, you know this, that you never know when it's going to hit, there'll be a special moment that both parents are not there for that happens with Ethan because there are challenges with Ben and that you
Yeah.
grieve that moment. And it just would hit me at different times emotionally. And I want to kind of circle back to this. One thing I wish I had done more, which I did not do when Ben was young, was just kind of process my emotions. I'm an open book, about my life. But I did not know, I didn't have anybody I could share those things with. Some of the challenges with our family situation because of Ben. And I didn't know another dad that had a child with disabilities.
Right.
And so I wasn't processing that. So it was kind of bottled up. And I know, Dad, I felt more grief and more sadness, was carrying that around more because I wasn't releasing that. I wasn't processing that and sharing that with somebody to kind of, have a release valve for those
I
emotions.
can I can really relate to that. It's I look back at those years in particular because again, this is kind of the internet was there, but there
Yeah.
weren't, like I said, there weren't support groups. There
Yeah.
weren't, and even if there were, I don't know, but I don't know if I would have reached out to one at that stage, right? Necessarily, because you got to be strong.
Yeah.
We're the guy.
Yeah.
But it's like as you alluded to, it's very isolating, very
It's very
right.
isolating.
And you don't even have time. Like I said, even if you had other dads at that stage, like you were saying, you're going to appointments,
Yeah.
therapies. There's so much going on that
Yeah.
there's not even really, I think, time or energy to build bonds or friendships outside of this tornado that we're living in.
You're right. It was all consuming, wasn't it? It's all consuming. And, just whether it's the fatigue or just don't have the energy to even engage my wife. And I was even afraid to ask Jen. I kind of regret, I was fearful at times to really ask my wife how she was feeling at times, with
Right,
them.
right.
I was afraid to ask her because of what what if she was having a good day and I'm asking her about, things with Ben and how she's feeling about our situation. And I was afraid to ask because what I don't want to bring her down if I'm having a bad day.
Right, right. Yeah,
She's having a
you
good
want
day.
her to ride the good wave. Exactly. Right.
Yes.
You don't want to crash that. And we don't have it
Yes.
right now here, so we don't have it. Yeah.
And David, I think it just takes a while for young dads to it takes a while for us to I don't know, navigate this a bit, kind of learn from experience, even though older dads can help us out. It still just takes a while to kind of even identify, having a name for some of the emotions we're feeling, kind of identifying what's kind of attributing to this. And it was hard to even then process with somebody because you didn't know what was, the root cause of some of the deep grief, sadness. And I didn't know till later looking back that it was really grieving the grieving, the death of a dream I didn't know I had as a dad that I had for me and Ben.
It's almost like grieving, I think, is the perfect word for it, description. But also, I've looked back and thought about there's almost a level of also kind of PTSD, right?
Yeah.
That you deal with. Because like you said, you're just kind of living in this constant
Yeah.
stress. It's just, it's just go, yeah, it's ongoing, right? And like I said, it's one thing to the next. And it takes a toll. It takes a
Yeah.
toll after a while,
And I
right?
think
It's hard. It's hard. It took me a long time, Brandon, to recover and to realize and recover from that and kind of, get my groove on, so to speak. I feel like, okay, I can get my arms around some of this stuff. Even like, this podcast is a good example of it. I wanted to do it for years, right? It was always one of those things that, oh, I should do this, but just like I did not like have the energy. And like when I started thinking about it, it's like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah. And I think, David, you're so right. I think one of the hardest things was just family gatherings. You said this talk about the ongoing stress. It was probably most stressful for us. So, walk into a restaurant, to a place that is outside of our home, because Ben's most comfortable at home. Most kids with autism are, but they know the place and they know their way around, and we know where they can be without us being there. And so it's safe. But yeah, at someone's home, we always had a shadow Ben. One of us had to shadow him because he did not want to be with the crowd. He wanted to be on the edges of the family or outside the house. And we just wanted to show up for a while. And that was just one of the hardest times, one of the most stressful times, because some family, it was more easy for them to accommodate us. And they would, think about what's going to kind of help serve our family. And others were more challenged to think about that, which I understand.
Yeah.
They, I know people don't know what to do with us sometimes. And so I want to respect that and empathize and be gracious. But yeah, family gatherings were the hardest, man. Thanksgiving, Christmas, there's the hardest to navigate and not knowing what to expect, not knowing how long Ben would last. So we would usually take two cars. We would usually take two cars,
Wow.
And
yeah, those are those wild card factors.
Yeah.
Talk about the communication. You touched on this a little bit earlier, Brandon. You said that he uses 20 to 30 signs. I think you mentioned an iPad, that he's using a speech app, and that he's just kind of recently started spelling. Talk about that first, and I want to ask, like, in terms of the spelling, if that's something that have you explored, spelling to communicate or RPM, or let's talk about that piece of the journey.
No, great question. And yeah, it's super encouraging. Here's a super encouraging update is just, like those therapists we saw in Denver and others along the way. Many were really positive, very encouraging and optimistic, many of our therapists, but some, were more concerned, and doctors are always the most concerned and have a hard time just showing, bedside manner and encouragement.
Yeah.
But I never honestly imagined, I really didn't imagine that we would be able to communicate very well with Ben, or if at all. I just didn't see it coming. And so when it did come about a year and a half ago, in addition to the 20 or 30 signs, Ben has an iPad and has a speech app on there called Lamp. And he would there's different pictures of things that he likes to do, like a picture of a pizza box. And he could click that picture and it would say pizza for him to communicate, or a picture of a pool where he could click the picture of the pool to say he wanted to swim.
Yeah.
And so he used that for a while, for a couple years, but about a year and a half ago, this guy started spelling words and like it's some complicated words like garage door and Louisiana, where my wife is from.
Oh, wow.
So not like just mom or dad that are a little easier to spell, but complicated words. And so they were telling us at school that he was reading. We're like, really? We don't see any evidence of much progress with communication or even, cognition. And so it was surprising to hear that. But yeah, he's starting to, if that's starting to be unlocked and he's able to communicate right now, just single words, just communicating things that he wants to do today. It's just more about it's just telling us what he wants to do. And we're so grateful. And the hope is if he can do that now, who knows where this guy will be in a month or in a year. And so
I could tell you if he's doing that, and again, especially unprompted, spontaneously,
he is
extremely hopeful, right?
Yeah.
Because that shows that he has the ability to initiate the motor control, right? Like it shows that all the pieces are there.
Yeah.
For him to really express himself beyond that. That's super exciting.
We are super grateful. And so in fact, I mean, we obviously are kind of, he was getting all the different helps at school. He just aged out of the school system. Ben just turned 22.
Right.
And so here in Oklahoma, you age out of 22. And so he is now going to a place called Empower here in Stillwater that offers kind of adult kind of daycare, but not just daycare. There's a couple of wings. There's a wing just where he can be in different classrooms, kind of like school, where he can be in a sensory room, a puzzle room, and movie room, and
cool.
and enjoy some fun stuff. But there's also a part of the building, it's an old school they've taken over, where they're recycling cardboard. And so Ben can participate in helping with recycling cardboard if he wants to. And so, of course, we're going to test that out here pretty soon. Once they're kind of operational, they're still not operational with that, but that's coming. And so, but what I was going to share is that the state of Oklahoma, thankfully, will cover a speech therapist, even though now he's an adult. And so we just talked to his caseworker. We have a caseworker that with DHS here in Oklahoma that we're going to have a speech therapist begin to spend time with Ben more regularly and work on this, try to build on these blocks that already are, beginning to come together, these words.
That's awesome. And are you looking into some of these other methodologies at all, Brandon? I'm just curious, like RPM or S2C.
S2C is the most intriguing. So I think you mentioned that to me before we got, before our conversation today, and I was looking into that. I'm familiar with the S2C. And so we're real intrigued about that. And we'll see what the speech therapist thinks. If his iPad and his ability with his fine motor skills, since he has no trouble typing words on his iPad, if we'll just continue to work with that and try to build off of that using the iPad.
Whatever works. I will give you a word of caution.
Okay.
Is that don't be surprised if the speech therapist is against S2C or some of these other methodologies, because the organization, the professional organization that they belong to, ASHA, has a strong positioning statement warning against using these methodologies.
Okay.
So many speech therapists either adhere to that, or they're concerned to go against that level of advice that the professional organization provides. So I'm just saying, don't be surprised if she kind of tries to steer you away. And regardless, push back.
Yeah.
It's your call. All of it. Like I said, progress is progress, and that's the bottom line. That's exciting, right? As long as you keep seeing that needle moving forward.
Right.
And it's got to be so exciting for Ben. I mean, can you imagine, like, again, being finally being unlocked?
And I think that's exactly right. And I think, we went through a season when puberty started from 13 till about 17 or 18, that I remember even one of the things that was hard about his communication or lack thereof, when he was young, was he was really trying. So it was really hard to see him really try. And it was so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't clicking. He might retain a word for a week. He might say dad for a week, then it would go away. And so it was so hard for him. And then I think in his teens, he was probably there was probably he was understanding more. His receptive language is always much further down the road or further along than his communication, his ability to communicate those thoughts. And so I think that was really hard for him in his teenage years. And he was more combative and frustrated, throwing things. And
Of
so I think
course.
that was part of it.
I would be too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so probably especially when mom and dad were understanding, we're kind of picking up what he was putting down, what he was trying to show us or communicate.
Yeah.
And it was
Well, it's good
frustrating
that
for everybody.
it's frustrating for everybody. It's good that you
Yeah,
recognize that, at least now. I mean, I always say better late than never in my case too. Because
yeah,
again, Brandon, being a teenager is hard,
yeah,
right? Anyway, you were, as a
yeah,
being a teenage boy, yeah, there were some great things about it, but there were a lot of,
Good game.
okay.
Good game.
There were also a lot of things that were hard. There
yeah,
are a lot of things that are hard. It doesn't change.
yeah,
And then you compound it with, these challenges that our kids have, the apraxia, that, and
yeah,
again, the inability to have your
yeah,
needs met, the basic stuff. I can only imagine. So you have exploding hormones combined with this.
yeah,
I I would not be fun to be around either.
yeah. And I think it's just good for parents to know this, like we're talking about, David, just that, hey, there'll be, that's going on that's happening alongside the puberty thing too. So it can be a
Right.
tough season, but just a season where
It's
they can be more combative physically. And so
yeah.
that was kind of a scary time for us. It didn't happen all the time, but several times that year, each year for over 4 or 5 years, where I would have to kind of come behind him to kind of safely lead him into his room where he wasn't hurting himself or anybody,
Yeah.
or breaking the TV, throwing stuff. And so
Yeah.
his room was a safe
Yeah.
place to be, where I just would sit by the door to let him cool down, which he did pretty quickly, about 5 or 10 minutes. And I was told by a speech therapist or one of Ben's teachers, just don't look him in the eyes, like let him kind of settle. And that really worked.
Don't trigger it even further.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So don't, if I try to stop him and get in his face and engage him, it was unhelpful. So at least
It's
not for
interesting.
Ben, and not for
Yeah.
Ben.
In our case, I just want to tell this quick story, and then I want to
Yeah.
get into your book. What was really interesting with Stone is we didn't really see a lot of that behavior until
Hmm.
actually after he began to communicate, affer he became unlocked.
Good game.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have cookies for breakfast today, and that's how I roll. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, after he starts spelling, after being able to communicate it, and I liken it to a volcano. It's like the volcano exploded, right? There was so
Yeah.
much that was repressed, as you could imagine, all these
Yeah.
years. In Stone's case, again, it was when he was 16, almost 17.
Yeah.
That I think the body physically changes, right? Now that there's this way to express everything that's been repressed can come out. And so,
Yeah.
yes, we started seeing some things, again, some impulsive physical behavior that was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
where did this come from? And it's gotten way better. And it wasn't anything that was a huge problem, but there were some
Yeah.
incidents that happened that were just like, okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that.
Can I just ask this question? How does Stone communicate now? Is it through just typing words, or is
Yes.
it okay?
Yeah. He uses most of the time a keyboard,
Okay.
and
I love it.
Google Docs or whatever. But he also has an iPad. We have a
Yeah.
app. It's called which is just an inexpensive text to talk app, and he just uses that to. That's what we use in school
I
most of the
love it.
time. We sit in class, and teachers will ask him questions or for quizzes, and he'll just he uses that, and so he's fully fluent communicating that
Wow.
way. Yeah, and it's amazing, right? It's I've told the story often. Going back now, we're looking back 3 years. Just over 3 years ago is when he started in the private school, and before they was in a public school.
Yeah.
Again, they did not presume competence, as we've talked about. He was in a classroom that had a teacher. When I visited, because I wanted to see what kind of academic work they were giving him, what I knew it was limited. I was shocked to find out how limited it was. They were having him still separate and count coins
Huh.
in what was supposed to be his junior year in high school. And now he's finished algebra 1, algebra 2, calculus.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's just, And we're writing a book too. So I want,
I love it.
yeah. I mean, it's a story that just, you wanted to tell. So let's talk about your book though.
Yeah.
What made you want to write that? What inspired, at what point did you say, "Look, man, I really want to put this
Yeah.
into
I mean,
writing"?
David, it's funny. I think I laugh every day about that I would say God called me to write a book, to call me to do this. I never imagined something like this. I was not the most studious guy, didn't like school. I don't like writing an email, much less a book. And so it's just
Wow.
funny.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a lot of
So
work then.
yeah. So what happened was for several years, God has been just teaching me things through Ben about life and about the Lord is just the truth. And so I've been writing those things down. And we were driving to Louisiana back in 2024 for Thanksgiving, and we're driving, and my family's all doing their own thing, and so they're locked in their headphones and watching their shows, and during that drive, the Lord brought to mind, Brandon, it's time to tell Ben's. It wasn't audible, was not an audible voice, but it's brought to mind. It's time to tell Ben's story and how you uniquely used him in your life to encourage others, especially encourage other dads like myself. And so I just started crying, David. I got very emotional the next 20 minutes because I really sensed that God was nudging me, clearly leading me to write this book, clearly leading me. And, and anytime you need clarity, if that really was of God and I really need to write a book, he gave me clarity over the coming days and weeks where I got more and more excited about it. I got more and more excited about this idea. I couldn't let it go. And what's funny is I'm crying for 20 minutes and nobody even noticed me in the car. Nobody even noticed me. So everybody's locked in nowadays doing their own thing.
Right.
So
that's classics.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I have a follow-up, but yeah.
Yeah. And so then, I had a couple of friends who had written several books. So I learned from them. I reached out to them to get, how does this work? Where do I start? What's it cost? So they kind of gave me the script and just were basically, kind of coached me through it. And as I learned how expensive it was, I realized we don't have the money to do this. I have a son at Baylor who's a freshman, at that time in a private school. And, he got a big scholarship, but it was still very expensive. And then we do college ministry, my wife and I. So we don't have much discretionary money. And so I just I was about to tap the brakes, like, this is just not happening now. It'll have to wait till after Ethan's out of college.
Yeah.
And I was having lunch with a friend, David, and a friend named Johnny. And he, as I was sharing with him the idea of the book, I was just sharing with him the idea that I might do this. He goes, Brandon, if you want to do this, I'll help you financially. And I bet you others will help you too. And again, I just kind of had a sense. It wasn't an audible voice from God, but I felt like the Lord was trying to tell me again, hey, I want to do this now. I want you to reach out to some family and friends and let me, kind of bring this whole thing together to make this thing happen, this book.
Oh, wow.
And sure enough, he did. I reached out to some family and friends over the next couple of weeks. And you might imagine, David, family and friends of yours would be excited if you needed some help to write a book, tell your story, Raising Stone. They're excited to help.
Yeah, right.
It was funded in about 2 weeks,
Oh, good.
It was funded, and I also did an audiobook, and God provided some extra money for that. So I did an audiobook too. Nice. For those who like to listen, a lot of guys nowadays prefer audiobooks over paperback. And so did that. We started that. We started that then in June. And so one of my friends who written some books recommended his ghostwriter, because I'm not a good writer. I can tell stories well. I feel comfortable telling stories. And he connected me with this ghostwriter. He said, Brandon, she made my 4th book so much better than my first 3. She made it 100 times better. And that's so awesome. I just took his advice and ran with it, and feel like that was the best path for me was to involve a ghostwriter. And he provided a whole team of people that he used to help him do the book. So all of a sudden I've got the financial resources and the people to help me do it well.
That's amazing.
It started in June. It was done in March. Took 9 months.
Okay. Wow. That's fast. I mean, you hear people who take years sometimes.
But I'd had a lot of these things stored up. Like I said, I'd already been writing these things down for years. So there was already probably 8 chapters worth of material on my little notes on my phone. Nothing fancy. I don't even use, Evernote. Just notes on my phone,
Right. Notes
So
is a great, yeah. No,
yeah.
I'm a big user of it as well.
So that's kind of the story. But yeah, never imagine doing this though. That's what's so funny. So you just never know just what God may call you to do, or however you feel nudged or led. If when an idea comes about and you keep getting excited about it, it's probably something worth pursuing.
It's a sign for sure.
I think so.
Brandon, was there a chapter or part of the book that was especially hard to write for you?
I think the early chapters, the early years,
Yeah.
I even cried through part of it. It's funny, like one of my first podcast interviews, I got very emotional talking about the boys in the early years because I feel like I missed being present. I wasn't as engaged. We had plenty of special moments, but I wasn't as engaged because I was just so focused on the next therapy appointment and fixing the problem. Seeing Ben as not Ben as a problem, but his challenges as a problem to be fixed. Right. And I just missed the person. I just missed enjoying him and loving him for who he is right now, not a future hoped for version of him. Focusing on the future version that I wanted to see come about. And so, but the early chapters were by far the hardest. The first just 2 or 3 talking about our journey, those early years.
Yeah.
It was painful, just really heavy. And I felt depressed, David, probably every other day, those 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And then when you're writing about it, it kind of brings those emotions back out
again,
right? Which is healthy. I mean, it's a healthy way to deal with it and to process it. But you do have to relive it. But we don't know what we don't know, right? We do.
Well, and I think what was helpful, David, is by reliving it a bit, it kind of helped me again, kind of identify more what was going on there. Like what was driving that? Why was I so emotional during those early years? And I was able to realize later what was driving that. What was really the root of it.
Yeah. The beauty of perspective now, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, you can look back and have a lot more perspective. I imagine life is a little calmer for you now. I mean, again, not
much calmer,
right? But calmer. It's, there's always challenges, but it's just, like we're saying, there's not the tornado. There's, it's just not the constant chaos that that we were just immersed in for so long.
And David, you can, correct me if this is not your story, but for me, I think I begin to accept a new normal. I kind of begin to accept kind of our story over time, and just like we're going to make the most of it. We're just going to make the most of this, and just want to enjoy my wife, my boys, and enjoy life, and we're going to do that, And I'm an optimistic guy. I'm not one to focus on the negative, but you got to work through the negative or kind of name it, identify it, grieve it, and then take the next step moving forward. It doesn't help to live there, to live in the negative. It's unhelpful. Right. To me and to everybody around me.
That's a great attitude.
So that was
Stone's hanging out today, which is he doesn't always do.
Stone, I love it, man. Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
See, that says it all. Good, happy.
Yeah, and that's Ben's story too, David. He's a happy really guy, I would describe Ben as you asked me, even I think a question you asked me was just, how would I describe Ben to people? Ben is, man, he is such a joy. Now, he's not always a joy, but most of the time he's a joy.
He's human. Yeah.
Yeah. None of us are always a joy, but he is just happy, content, especially getting to do the things that he enjoys. We like to serve him in that way. And we just want Ben to enjoy life more than anything and enjoy his time with his family and get out there in the community a little bit, going to empower this place he goes to be with others. We want to continue to help him continue to grow and develop, to be, kind of the best version of him, or reach that, that ceiling of growth, whatever that's going to be.
Whatever that is. Like, and now it's a lot higher.
A lot higher.
I want to transition a little bit into a couple of our segments that we had talked about.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick things off with our jingle for our tip of the week.
Hey, pals, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, the tip of the week is back in the mix here, the lighter side of the spectrum. like to share some words of wisdom. And Brandon, I'm sure that you have a tip or two that you can share. If you look back, especially maybe thinking back to either the younger version of yourself or to the young dads out there that may be listening to us that are in those early stages, what do you have?
I'd say for young dads or any dad, it's just be present. Be present. Don't let the future steal the moment. Don't let the future therapy appointment or specialist you're going to see or, worrying about that steal the moment. Just enjoy loving the current version of your son or daughter, your family, your friends. Just enjoy the moment because life's relational. Life's relational. We want to enjoy deeply our family and friends.
That's great. And I just, want to say here. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, like I said, life is made up of moments, right? It's just this collection of moments and memories, and having those, those memories and those moments when you connect. I was just thinking again, like you were talking about your time with Ben and growing up. I mean, Stone and I have spent a tremendous amount of time together. And like you said, some of the best memories are just those quiet moments.
Yeah.
When I would take him out either for a drive, find a new playground. In our case, like this, a lot of time on the beach, just hanging out on the beach, and that's where the bond has been formed. And once it's formed, there's nothing like it, right? I mean, there's
nothing like it.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
We have another segment what I'd like to do, which is autism, fact or fiction. So we've got a little jingle for that too.
Get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
All right, so this is another segment where we like to challenge a misconception about autism or disability or communication or family life, or again, is this true? Is this false? What do you think? I don't know. Again, you don't have to. I don't know if you have something for this, Brandon.
I do.
Not, okay. Oh, great. All right, so you brought it. You brought it. Awesome. What do you got?
Well, I would say a fiction is that a child with autism for a family, for parents, is a burden or is a tragedy. Yes, it is a challenge. There are big challenges. Some have greater challenges than I have with their son or daughter. But there's so many blessings, so many good things. I'm so grateful for who my son is today, just the bonds we have that I never imagined coming when Ben was young. And so I think that I want people to know that they are not a burden, but a blessing. Though it's really hard.
Yes,
really
I'm
hard,
glad
but
you
there's
had
also
that.
lots of good.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think it's important to acknowledge both, right? Because I think there are times there are people who, and I was one of those, Brandon, when I was younger, and especially in the throes of the challenges, you'd hear some of the other parents talk about just what a blessing it is, and just and how wonderful it all, and enjoy it because it's not like, and you're just like, there are times you're kind of like, screw you, this is hard. This is like, I'm trying to survive today, and and so I think both are true, right? Like there's a survival aspect. You're going to get through it. Again, to those parents, you will get through it.
Yeah,
and it's so worth it. That's what I would say. It's just it's so worth it.
Absolutely.
All right, third round. We're getting through these different segments. I love it. Let's go ahead and talk about. Let's do our parent confession.
Morning routines can go astray. Found socks in the fridge one day. Laughter's the best remedy. Hey, we're just finding our own way. Mom, Dad, confessions every week, sharing joys and moments we seek, honest tales that make us unique. Join the club, we're never meek.
All right, this has turned into one of my favorite segments because I think it's something we all can relate to, right? Where we get to actually admit to something that we've thought or felt or did, in the past that maybe makes us cringe a little in hindsight. But, again, we acknowledge our humanity. So this whole episode's been kind of one big confession in a way for both of us.
It is.
Do you have something in particular you want to share?
I do. Yeah. I would say just my confession would be, or just what I really regret with my wife was just kind of taking her for granted. I feel like I neglected her when our boys were young. And even beyond that, just taking her for granted that she's going to be there. And I think for many years, I paid more attention to my boys and neglected Jen. And so just something I regret. And I do better there now by God's grace. But man, for many years, I did not do that well and just assumed she would be there. And I didn't pursue her. I wasn't actively pursuing her, taking her on dates like I wanted to, like I do now.
That's great. That's honest, that's vulnerable, that's true. And I think again, something a lot of us can relate to. For those of us fortunate enough to have a partner in our life who's there, like you said, through thick or thin, they're that steady rock. And in my case, I definitely have that with my wife, Renee.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who's provides the stability, both, financial and otherwise, that allows us to do the things that we do. That's helped Stone thrive. And like you said, it's easy when you're kind of in the midst of everything to take it for granted, right? Just to say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, they're there. Of course they're there. But that's not necessarily the right way to think about it. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Can I share one more thing, David?
Of course, of course. Yeah.
I think I would share one more thing that I would say, boy, with our spouses, it's so important, for us to enjoy our families, is for us to encourage the other to get out and spend time with friends and do things they enjoy to stay healthy personally and spiritually so they can really enjoy being with the family and when they're at home. And there, regarding my book, Delighting in Ben, there would be no Delighting in Ben if my wife hadn't encouraged me to get out of the house, to go play around the golf, to go to a football game, and with my younger son. But she always encouraged us to get out, to do some fun things they were life-giving to me. And I came back in the home, was more engaged with her and Ben and able to, it's so important. We got to,
so important.
So just wanted to share that.
No, thank you for sharing that. No, I'm telling you something you obviously already know. You've got a winner there, Brandon.
I do.
You got a good thing going. Obviously, it's, as we said, it's a lot of work, and it
is.
They say it takes a village. Well, a lot of times, it takes a partnership.
It does.
Yeah. You want to take a bath?
Yeah.
Sounds ready for a bath.
Yes.
That's next up on our agenda. But
That's
again,
great.
so your book. So I want to get a chance to plug it. So the book is available now.
Yes, sir. You can go to my website, delightinginben.com.
Okay.
Or you can reach out to me via email, brandon.boyd@cru.org. But I would go to the website and
Awesome.
You can order the book through Amazon there, and it's on Audible.
Great. Well, we'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes for sure. But Brandon, thank you for this conversation. What I appreciate so much about your story is that, it doesn't erase the hard parts. It doesn't pretend disability parenting is simple, as we talked about. And it also refuses to reduce Ben to just a diagnosis, a challenge, or a set of missed milestones. And as we've talked about before, I think this is where our stories overlap so much and so deeply. So many of us begin this journey thinking that our job is to fix, to solve, to manage something, or somehow rescue our kids, from these lives that we think they've been given. And, we have to fight for support. We have to fight for services. That's something obviously I'm very passionate about.
Yes.
We have to fight for communication, education, dignity, access, opportunity. But as you've pointed out and talked about, we have to learn how to see, to see the child who's already there, to see their intelligence that may not show itself through speech, to see the joy in the garage door, the water, the pool, the patterns, the rituals, the preferences, the expressions, the spelling, the science, all of it, right? That may not look the way we imagined it would.
Yeah. Well, they're precious. Everyone's created in God's image, in my opinion. We're all unique, special, of high value. To God of so much value, Christ gave his life for us. And so I just, love my sons, both of them, and just want to choose to delight in them for who they are.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a wonderful job with that. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thanks for sharing the story with the world. Thanks for being there. And for those of you watching and listening, thank you for being there as well and for your feedback. I appreciate it so much. Again, for those of you, if you have suggestions, thoughts, questions for myself or for Brandon or anyone else, feel free to reach out to me at david.coffer@hey.com. Don't forget to check out my Substack, Coffer Insights, and videos on Coffer Insights on YouTube. Till next week, we'll see you again on the lighter side of the spectrum.